3 countries, 3 crises, 1 week. America's top intelligence chief just resigned. The U.S. and Canada just suspended a defense board that has existed since 1940. And hundreds of people in Greenland flooded the streets chanting "No means no" and "Go home, USA." All of this happened in the same 7 days, the 3rd week of May 2026. And if you only caught one headline, you missed 2 others that are just as significant. Welcome to Global Sketch, where we connect the dots so you get the full picture, not just the fragments. Subscribe right now because this breakdown is exactly why this channel exists. Let's go. On Friday, May 22, 2026, Tulsi Gabbard resigned as Director of National Intelligence, America's top intelligence official, overseeing all 18 agencies in the U.S. intelligence community. But here is the context. The resignation letter does not include. Tulsi Gabbard became the 8th Senate-confirmed DNI when she was confirmed 52-48 on February 12, 2025. A narrow margin that reflected just how contested her appointment was. As a former 4-term Democratic congresswoman who left her party in 2022, became an independent, endorsed Trump, and then joined the Republican Party months before the election, she was always an unusual fit for the role. The real friction, according to multiple sources, was the Iran war. When Tulsi Gabbard testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee on March 18, 2026, she made her position clear. She did not believe the U.S. military strikes were justified and assessed that Iran did not present an active nuclear threat. Trump publicly pushed back, stating on Truth Social that he did not care what she thought. Tulsi Gabbard also faced sustained pressure from Trump allies. Laura Loomer, a Trump confidant, was a frequent public critic of Tulsi Gabbard. Loomer was the first to report the resignation on Friday. What does this mean going forward? Aaron Lucas now runs the DNI office in an acting capacity with no Senate confirmation required for that role. The United States enters a period of intelligence leadership transition at a moment when it is fighting a war in Iran, managing a fractured alliance with Canada, and projecting territorial ambitions across the Western Hemisphere. The Permanent Joint Board on Defense was established in 1940, before the United States had even entered World War II, as the foundation of North American continental security cooperation. It has operated continuously for 86 years through the Cold War, 9/11, and every geopolitical crisis in between. On May 18, 2026, the Pentagon announced it was pausing its participation in that board. The Pentagon handed Ottawa a classified document outlining its vision for a new North American Defense Pact. Canada's response, according to a senior U.S. defense official who briefed journalists this week, was described as not credible, essentially telling Washington that Canada would try to align with the U.S. position, rather than presenting a concrete spending and procurement roadmap. On the F-35, specifically, Royal Canadian Air Force pilots are scheduled to begin training on F-35s at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona later this year. But Canada's defense review, which was supposed to determine whether it would formally commit to the full purchase, has been delayed, and no decision timeline has been given by Defense Minister David McGuinty. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has downplayed the board suspension, telling reporters on May 19th that NORAD cooperation would continue and that the 2 countries have many layers of defense ties. But former Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page called on Carney to present a full fiscal roadmap to Parliament, saying the government has not been fiscally transparent about how it plans to ramp up defense spending to 2035. What this means for Canada: the bilateral relationship is operating under more pressure than at any point since the 2 nations' defense cooperation began. Canada is meeting its current NATO commitments. The U.S. wants more, faster, and with firmer guarantees. That gap is now an official fracture in the world's longest undefended border. On Thursday, May 21, 2026, the United States officially opened a new, larger consulate in central Nuuk, Greenland's capital. The old consulate was a small wooden cabin on the outskirts of the city. The new one is a spacious office in the downtown center, a visible symbol of expanding American diplomatic presence in the Arctic. What happened outside that building told a different story. This followed a visit by Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, Trump's appointed special envoy to Greenland, who arrived in Nuuk the weekend before, attached himself to a public business conference, and met with Prime Minister Nielsen and Foreign Minister Mute. The Foreign Minister's statement after the meeting was direct. Greenland is not for sale. The red lines are real. And when asked whether Landry left better informed, Agidi said he hoped people who come to Greenland learn something about the importance of respecting international law and the people who live there. At the consulate opening itself, U.S. Ambassador to Denmark Kenneth Howry struck a more conciliatory tone, saying the U.S. would respect whatever future Greenlanders choose for themselves. But that message is now competing with Trump's own public statements that military options for acquiring Greenland have not been taken off the table. The cumulative picture emerging in the third week of May 2026, an administration fighting an unpopular war in Iran, alienating its longest-standing continental defense partner, and simultaneously projecting territorial ambitions toward Greenland, Cuba, Canada, and Venezuela, all at the same time. Here is the full picture from the week of May 19th to 25th, 2026. The United States lost its DNI, the official who sits at the center of the entire U.S. intelligence architecture, with a transition happening in the middle of an active war. The country suspended an 86-year defense partnership with Canada over a disagreement about spending plans and fighter jet timelines. And hundreds of Greenlandic citizens filled the streets to tell Washington, in their own language, to stop. The three separate stories, one consistent theme. The United States under this administration is managing more simultaneous foreign policy fractures than at any point in recent memory, with fewer stable alliances, a depleted military posture by its own admission, and an intelligence leadership vacuum arriving in June. Whether you think these moves reflect bold strategic vision or reckless overreach, the data tells one clear story. The world is responding, and not always in the direction Washington intended. Subscribe to Global Sketch. Share this with one person who needs the full picture, not just the headline. We will keep following this story as it develops.